Oh,
Hi guys, welcome back to Deliberate, Conscious and Candy Talks. My name is Roslyn Wanjiko. As usual, I'm quite excited to be on here to share matters that affect life, issues that come and affect how we live. And I'm quite excited because today is not just like any other day. I'm not alone. I have the honor, the privilege of hosting not just one, not just two, but three mental health professionals who are going to introduce themselves in a few. And I think we'll start our introduction from my left.
Hi, so I'm Geraldine Miners. I'm a psychotherapist working in the UK in Glasgow in Scotland, and I use cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, as my form of treatment.
Amazing, thank you. Welcome to my platform.
Thank you.
And on my right, we have two of mental health nurses. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves as well.
My name is Elizabeth Mutura. I'm a mental health nurse and a person living with dyslexia.
Thank you.
I'm Victoria Robertson. I'm a mental health nurse back in Scotland as well.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming on my platform, setting some time apart to be here. It's such an honor. And guys, be sure that today you're going to learn a thing or two about something that you may not know is affecting your life. And most importantly, how you're going to deal with it so that you're able to live to your optimum potential. And basically, today we are going to be talking about what really depression is and also anxiety. These are things that sometimes I feel people abuse. These are words that people just abuse. And some people don't even know they're suffering from these things. And according to psychologists, it's good to name things so that you're able to tame them. So if that is something you're interested in watching, please do stay with us. And just to ice break, I'd like to ask my panelists, what do you think? I don't know if you should start this time from the right side.
Yeah.
What do you think matters most in life?
It depends in every individual because our interests are always different. But for me, if I say for me, it's peace and how to be able to be self-aware of myself and how to deal with life because there's quite a lot of situations that come along the way. Life is quite difficult.
Yes.
There's so many things happening, but if you're self-aware and you know what's happening around you, you will be able to work on the deficits and then you have this peace. Because if we talk about happiness is different with every individual. I cannot say happiness, that what makes me happy is what makes everybody happy. So that's a personal thing. So for me,
yes,
it's peace and understanding who I am.
I like that.
Yeah.
Right. So for you, Victoria?
I guess I'm kind of the same as Elizabeth, being self-aware, but I would say what matters most is social connections.
Yes.
I find it really important that you have a kind of support network behind you, that you have your family or your friends, some form of relationship that is meaningful to you, which gives you purpose, which gives you the importance of having someone as you're part of their life and they're part of yours.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So far we are getting two things, because what I hear from Elizabeth is that self-awareness and just understanding what could be affecting you as a person, if I heard you right, is what matters most in life. And what I hear from Victoria is that what matters most in life is, first of all, the people surrounding you, your social circle, in addition to self-awareness. So it's a good time to ask yourself, even as we continue to ask our panelists, what do you think matters most in your life as an individual? So you can go to Geraldine.
Okay, so, well, I agree with everything that's been said so far. And actually, what I often say to people I'm working with is to think about three things with the initials ACE, ACE. So achievement, connection, and enjoyment.
Right.
and we need to have a bit of all of those and to have them kind of in balance, I think, to really get the most out of life. For me personally, I think connection with other humans, and meaningful relationships, healthy relationships, is probably the number one thing.
Okay.
But if I was just doing that and I didn't achieve anything or fulfill any kind of purpose,
Right.
then I don't think that would mean much.
Great. Okay. I feel like we are all on the same page in one way or the other. Only that I think according to maybe our personalities, then the priorities are different. Probably one would want their social engagement to be more compared to other people. So, right, I like that. So a second icebreaker would be, if you needed to choose, would you choose money or peace?
Are we starting this way?
It's alright.
I think I'll answer that as honest as I can be, because we need peace and also we need money to survive.
Sure.
So I might have all the peace of God,
Right.
but I can't make life happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't buy my own food. I can't take care of my own.
Right.
Then the peace disappears.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need in like adequate money. I don't know whether that's the right word.
Yeah.
To survive,
Mhm.
and when you survive, then you have peace.
Right.
So I don't think I can choose either or.
Mm-hmm.
It goes hand in hand,
Yeah.
because without money, you can't sustain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You will have peace, but how are you going to manage it?
Sure.
Because I think most of the people that I've met,
Yeah.
they are disabled by no lack of money. They
True.
can't have even the little things that you need in life, like food. So when your kids are crying for food,
Yeah.
I don't think you'll
You
have peace.
I know.
So I think it goes hand in hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Julia?
Okay, I guess it's kind of the same similar thing. It says that to achieve a successful life, you have to gain. There's a step. If you
Right.
don't have your basics needs fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't succeed in life.
Yeah.
So you do need a short amount of money to get your basics. Like Elizabeth said, you need your food, you need clean water, you need to be able to achieve these things.
Right.
So I think it's important in a sense to have money,
Mm-hmm.
but not too much. That doesn't bring peace either, because coming from the UK, we tend to want.
Yeah.
When you have money, you need the best phones, the best computers, the best everything in life, and
Yeah.
you are consistently asking for more and more and more, and that doesn't bring peace.
Right.
You come to somewhere that's a little bit less fortunate, that has the basics,
Mm-hmm.
but can't go and get the designer jeans, the designer bag, and you see happiness in them
Right.
because they're not asking for the most of everything.
Yeah.
I think peace to me is most important, but you do need to get the basics. If you don't have the basics, then you can't succeed in life.
That's true.
So I guess it is the same as Elizabeth in that you need both,
Yeah.
but in a set of you don't need lots and lots of money, you just need to get your basics.
Yeah, you need, like, what I hear you saying is that you need to balance, like, your ambitions. It's good to be ambitious in terms of money, because it reaches a point where even if you have enough, if you're not in a mental space where you're able to identify that this is enough, I would want more, yes, but I can still have peace if I don't get more. So what I hear you saying is that we should be able to balance our
Yeah.
ambitions. Even if we are pursuing more, then we should know where that goes in terms of our peace.
I think
of
it's
mind.
like contentment. You have to be
Right,
content in
I
your
like
life.
that.
You can't have that you want everything. It's like finding your basics,
Yeah.
having these small things achieved,
Yeah.
and finding contentment in life rather than pushing for everything. Like you don't need to have everything in the world to be happy.
Yeah, and because actually my viewers know that I'm a pro-God psychologist, the Bible clearly says that contentment with godliness is great gain. So contentment really, I think helps. So let's hear from Geraldine.
Yeah, so I agree with what's been said so far. There's a saying which is that money can't buy happiness, but it sure as heck helps.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that is true.
It's true.
Money can't buy happiness, but there's a sense in which we also need to consider that without justice there cannot be peace.
True.
So people cannot be at peace in a society where there is huge inequality. And in fact, there's a really interesting book called The Spirit Level, which has looked at lots of different countries and shown that happiness is directly related to how equal the society is.
Yeah.
So it's not about rich or about poor, but if you live in a society like, for example, in parts of America where there's a huge difference between the rich and the poor, everyone is suffering,
That's true.
including the rich people, because they feel unsafe all the time. Whereas if you go to other countries like Scandinavian countries where there's much more equality, everyone is happier. So yeah, no justice, no peace.
I like that, and I feel like the discussion of inequality is a whole other discussion.
Yes.
A discussion for yet another day. I hope we get that day, whether physically or online, because it's quite important. But let's just get into the discussion of the day, which I think the first two questions led us to in one way or the other. And this is about depression and anxiety. These two things are just the elephant in the room in our lives, knowingly or unknowingly. So having professionals here really helps because they demystify what really depression is and anxiety is. So we'd like to hear from, let's just hear from Geraldine this time. How can you explain depression and anxiety in a summary form for a person who doesn't really know that they might be having it, or a person who thinks they're actually having it? We'd like to hear the explanation. Yeah.
Okay, so depression and anxiety are both very common mental health conditions that affect a large proportion of the population over the course of their lifetime. And they're both a kind of illness, a form of mental illness, but there's a huge spectrum. So you can have quite mild depression or anxiety through to very, very severe, and you might even need to be in hospital if that happens. The difference between them, I think, is that depression is typically a sense of sadness, and there's often a big focus on the past and a big sense of failure. Whereas anxiety is often future focused. So it's more like worry about the future or a feeling of dread, like something awful is about to happen. And with both depression and anxiety, people can experience other symptoms as well, like a loss of appetite, sometimes rapid weight loss, often not being able to sleep, or maybe they can go to sleep but they wake up very, very early in the morning with this horrible feeling of dread or sadness. And I think one thing people don't always recognise is that both depression and anxiety have this huge physical component. So you can, if you have it, and I've had personal experience of this, you feel it in your body, and it's just the most horrible feeling. So yeah, that's a kind of summary of it, but there are many different types. I mean, anxieties can be quite specific, like phobias, for example, or they can be very general, where you're anxious about absolutely everything.
Right. I like that explanation. And then maybe the next question I would want to ask, and maybe Victoria can help us with this, is, do you think there are certain things in life that provoke these two things? Like, are there certain factors or certain known factors that could lead to depression and anxiety easily?
I think that's a big mixture of everything. It can be as simple as the way someone's brought up. It can be the way that they live their life, if they come from like a poorer kind of like home environment. It can be biological, so it can be kind of passed down mental illness. There's lots of factors that kind of play into mental illness, and I think that is the hard bit of it, is it's really hard to identify at times. Depression can be seen as loss over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It can be something as simple as going through a trauma and not managing that and ignoring your feelings, and after so many years your body just can't take any more of that kind of beating, and it ends up in the anxieties and the depression. So I think that there is the common things where you can see and you can justify it, of they've lost someone, they have came from a kind of poorer living, there's simple things as that, but sometimes it can be that it just appears with someone.
Right. Okay. I like when you mentioned about justification for experiencing these two very heavy emotions that sometimes would need even medicine to treat or to control. Then I would wonder, or someone would wonder, okay, maybe you have experienced loss, right? That has taken a toll on you, or lack of jobs, because again, remember the first question we were asking, between money and peace, and you said if you're not able to provide for your basic needs, then that brings anxiety, that might end up bringing depression, because I don't think really sometimes it's someone's fault. But again, it doesn't help to, for instance, you don't have a job and again you're suffering from depression, because that could bring health issues also, and you don't even have that money to provide for your basic needs. So again, you need that money to take you to hospital. So I think my people would want to know then, what are the tools that people can use to help manage these feelings, that even though yes, you're actually facing real-time issues, what are the tools to use to manage depression and anxiety? Maybe you can help us with that.
I think talking this as somebody who's lived in this country,
Right.
and somebody who's been in through the hard times,
Yes.
to manage depression and anxiety, the best thing is not to shy away from saying what you feel and how you feel.
Yeah.
And understand that this is not your fault, this is not a problem. But then again, we need to understand the people around us, when somebody comes and addresses the issue, not to laugh it out.
Yes.
It's a serious illness, it's a serious problem that is affecting most of the young people. And when I come to you with my problem, and you look around and you say, why are you stressed so and so? It's not about comparison, it's about understanding that as an individual I am struggling with what I've talked about, whether it might be small to you, it is actually something to me, and respect that. And the tools we have, like I've said, it's talking to someone. Try and see whether you can see a therapist, somebody who can direct you. And also, like for example, identify, like if your pattern changes, like you're sleeping a lot, you're lacking appetite, you don't feel like doing anything, you're snapping, because sometimes you can feel that everything is being too much. And especially for parents, if you have a child and jobs are becoming too difficult to get, and a child is facing you and you're snapping to that child, then understand that you're putting that child into a more difficult situation, because that child is going to start experiencing anxiety because they're afraid of coming to you with anything, because kids tend to pick up emotions, and they will start distancing. So it's a matter of trying to understand and talk about situations, because like for example in the UK, sometimes when you're feeling low, you'll be told, go to the gym, try and change things, have a walk. And we can access it's mental health is commonly known, like you can talk to somebody without being judged. But I find here, and I've been born here, it's a very difficult topic. And if you know somebody who knows somebody, let's try to talk about it. Let's try to make it out there that it's an illness. It can disable your life, because when you're in this situation, everything becomes kind of black. And that's why sometimes it goes to an extent of, you see people starting self-harming. And even though here self-harming is not as understood, I've seen it.
Yes.
And it's becoming quite common in young people because they feel not understood.
Right.
So that's maybe what I can say about that.
Amazing.
Sorry.
I like that because you also mentioned things that we can practically do for ourselves even before we go to other people, like just finding things that will distract you from these heavy emotions.
Yeah.
You understand that they're there as a person, but then what are the constructive ways that you can escape from these things? One is therapy, as I heard you say. The other thing is the people around you should really try to understand that this is not something that you're just coming up with. It's something that you're feeling, and it's something that could actually disable your life or cause dysfunction in your life. And like I said, it doesn't help for you to be going through one problem and this problem again brings about another problem. So it's good to address one thing at a time. Yes, you could be lacking something. Yes, you could have lost someone, but then to get into depression does not help the situation. So it's good to adapt constructive ways, be it therapy, be it things like gym, be it things like just doing happy things that would help you manage these kind of things. I don't know if Geraldine, you might have something else to add concerning the tools to manage these feelings.
Yeah, so I mean, getting active
Yes.
in any way possible is helpful. So in the UK we talk about behavioural activation. So often when people get depressed, it's like a vicious cycle. They feel terrible, they stay in the house, and then of course there's nothing really to get up for, and then they feel even more terrible.
Yes.
So it's about trying to break that cycle by getting them just to do anything. I mean, sometimes it might be, if it's bad, it might be literally get out of bed and have a shower.
Yes.
That's all you're expected to do for the day. But just try and build it up. Walk around the block, walk around the park, just do something, have a cup of coffee with somebody. So that's helpful. But I think one thing that's important to say is that if you get very severely depressed, then you're unlikely to be able to just get yourself out of it. And one of the horrible things about depression is that people blame themselves for feeling that way and for not being able to lift themselves out of it. And if it's very severe, they will find it very difficult. And sometimes medication is very useful just to give them just that boost that's enough to get them kind of started again.
True. The other question that I really thought about, and that's probably
Sorry, I wanted, there is this formula Victoria normally uses about depression and how to manage it, about the bucket. And if I would like her to explain, because it's a very, very good, like, easy illustration about, like, stress being in the bucket.
Yeah.
And what you put in and what you put out.
Right, so before Victoria gives us an explanation, I'm actually going to direct this question to her. I think that's going to help also, because I was thinking, while experiencing these feelings or these emotions, what are some of the things to look out for, or some of the things that we could involve ourselves in that wouldn't help the situation at all?
I guess that's where it comes down to the stress and tolerance bucket,
Right.
where it is you are overwhelmed with a feeling. You use coping strategies of any form. We tend to use alcohol, we tend to use drugs, we tend to go to the unhealthy strategies first because they are the quickest way to ignore how we're feeling.
Yeah.
But then in the long run, you are not getting over these emotions, you're not expressing these emotions, you're ignoring them. They come back more unhealthy.
Yeah.
They can come back even stronger in these feelings. So the way that we had used it was, we have a bucket. This is the stress and tolerance that we can hold.
Right.
You have the water going into the bucket, which is like your day-to-day, everything that's going on is getting put into this bucket.
Okay.
We then have it's starting to overflow.
Yeah.
We need to let go some of this stress, some of this emotion.
Right.
We find positive coping strategies that can be, like we've said, talking.
Yes.
It can be going a walk, it's exercising, it is deep breathing, it is journaling, it is all these healthy things that we're expressing how we're feeling, we're getting out how we're feeling, but in the long run, it's not going to put the water back inside the bucket. It's taking it out and it's leaving it out.
Yes.
You use stuff like alcohol, you use things like drugs, become addicted to certain things, it puts it back in. It is only a short thing that's helping, but in the long term it just gets worse and worse. So I guess it's these kind of finding the positives that work for each person. Me, I don't like writing, but for other people they like journaling, so it's finding what makes you happy, which allows you to release the emotions in a healthy way rather than finding the unhealthy kind of strategies.
Because some ways of dealing with depression and anxiety, I feel, is like a time bomb. Like, yes, it's dealing with the situation at the time, but again, like you said, at the end of the day, it all comes back more heavily because you didn't actually let it out. You just chose to like sweep it under the rugs and then come back to it like later. And so you need to keep depending. In fact, it brings about codependency on certain things. But things like therapy, at the end of the day, they teach you how to be an independent person and try to deal with these things on your own to some extent. Like, there's no dependency at all because the therapy gives you tools that allow you to deal with things individually.
I think it's also accepting but that with therapy, although it is a healthy strategy and it is positive, it is difficult. It is facing how you feel. It is being ready to face those emotions. And sometimes people aren't ready to say that. So it's making sure that you do feel safe when you start talking. Like Elizabeth said, something like self-harming is a thing that people use as a coping strategy, which in the long run, it's not helpful. But it's a way of ignoring their feelings. It's a way of releasing something like that. So you have to be able to be in a safe space before you start certain therapies of talking. Easy, like saying, Elizabeth, I feel not really good today. Something simple that's fine. But going into deep trauma is making sure you're feeling safe before you do that. I think that is also important. It's not just let everything out and everything's going to be fine, because letting everything out can open new doors, can traumatize someone else again. So it's making sure you feel safe before you do that.
That's true. And I cannot even begin to mention how helpful this was. Like, normally I'm just used to coming here by myself and giving the little knowledge that I have, but today to have the privilege of hosting actual professionals is beyond how my words. So I'm very thankful. And I think for maybe like in Kenya, therapy is not that cheap, you know. And you know, some of the people going through some of these things, the last thing they want to do is take their finances to therapy because they have other needs that come before they can go for therapy and all these things. So I think it's a call also to institutions like churches, like schools, because it would be easier to bring, like, it would be easier for churches, for example, to have a designated psychologist, for schools to have a designated psychologist, such that they share that risk. If it's like paying school fees, it will be accommodated there. If it's like churches, the best they can do, at least for their congregants, is have that person who can just talk to their people, because sometimes it's not, friends are good, but they don't have the know-how of breaking all these things down. So it's also a wake-up call to the institutions that bring people together to take into consideration just having professionals, just one. I mean, I think it would be really helpful to have at least just one in each church or in each school to be able to help the people, because like they said, for instance, it could be trauma from how you've been brought up. So kids having counselors to talk to them from that age, then they will be able to debunk all these things. I appreciate your presence so much, and I look forward to having yet another session, whether online or physically. And I hope you guys have learned a thing or two. I hope this session has helped you understand some of the things that you experience in your life, and if it's not you, maybe the people that surround you, because our goal, our intention is to see to it that people live to their optimum potential for the good of all of us, for the good of the society. So today we are only going to get to that point. And kindly share in the comment section what you learned. If you have any more questions, maybe we could answer you in the comment section. And thank you for watching to the end. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.